Let's see if this thing's gonna work. Come on, technology. Yep. It's gonna be a real small crowd tonight. All right. Well, welcome everyone to TUBBS. Throttle Up Bible Biker Study, going through Deuteronomy. Or cornbread and hominy. Deuteronomy. And we're in Deuteronomy 14, talking about tasty and untasty animals. I mean, clean and unclean. Yeah, eat a cat if it was cooked right. Earthworm cookies. Alright. Well, before we get too sidetracked about all the tasty animals out there, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for giving us this place to study and get closer to you and learn about you, Lord. And just have this fellowship with our friends and just kind of bounce ideas off of each other's brains about, what we read in the Old Testament and figure it out with a little bit of research and come to a new and more clarified understanding of you, Lord. And really just enjoy this time and praise you and worship you, Lord, and further and deepen that connection. So just please bless this time that we have. Amen. Yep. So I had to look up a bunch of different animals because, of course, the Bible calls animals things we don't usually have words or use the same words as they did. So, Deuteronomy 14, verse 1. Yep. So, you are the sons of the Lord your God. You shall not cut yourselves nor shave your forehead for the sake of the dead. Alright, let's just stop right there. Any of you shave your foreheads? So, I mean, I suppose the one case we would do it nowadays would be for, like, if you had a unibrow. No, it's not. That's not what it's referring to. It's exactly. It's common to a pagan mourning ritual at the time. And this was put in place because Israel was supposed to be set apart. Let's find a seat. Israel's supposed to be set apart. No, come out here. And stay off your phone. Alright. So, Israel's supposed to be set apart. And this is part of that they are not to have the burial and mourning customs of people in the surrounding areas. Same as like they're not supposed to follow the gods of the surrounding people in the surrounding areas. But, since, and I kind of patch this into nowadays, since we're believers of Christ, we should have a very different perspective on death. Our perspective on death should be, one of hope. If the person who passes away is a believer and, they've been a believer for a long time and had that close relationship with Jesus, we would have every expectation or, as far as we're concerned, we'd assume that they'd be in heaven. I mean, obviously the Lord is the final judge and the Lord knows everybody's hearts, but that should be our expectation. So we should have a very different perspective on death. It should be almost kind of like a joyous event of where someone goes to meet the Lord. Does that make sense? Alright, verse 2. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God, and the Lord has chosen you to be a people for his own possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. Alright. So, you would kind of read this, and it says this, really the same thing a few other times in Deuteronomy. But again, Moses is emphasizing holy people, set apart. the Lord has chosen, set apart, to be his own possession, or some translations might say special treasure, set apart. Out of all peoples, set apart. They're supposed to be different from everyone around them, because they are set apart. But that also has the requirement that they behave differently and, hold fast to their traditions. Yeah. Because they were set apart, they had to behave like they were different from all the peoples and held to a higher standard as far as God is concerned. And we'll figure out, that they're only able to really stay set apart for 550 years and keep the Holy Land. All right. Verse 3. You shall not eat any detestable thing. So, bananas are detestable. You've heard it here in TUBBS. Bananas are detestable. And I'm going to throw sweet potatoes in there too. Sweet potatoes are detestable. Yep, you're learning things. I can guarantee it. No. So, a big part of the dietary things for Israel is to keep Israel healthy, and we'll see that here in a little bit. So, verse 4 here. These are the animals which you may eat: the ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle, the roebuck. Does anyone know what a roebuck is? Roebuck is Sears' partner. So, a roebuck, more commonly referred to nowadays as a roe deer, is a small species of deer, reddish, gray, brown. So it's just another form of deer. The wild goat, the ibex. All right, who knows what an ibex is? Come on. Oh, King James Pygarg. Yep. Yep. Our animal expert back there says it's a large kind of. Yeah. See, Bo knows what's up. You are correct. It is kind of like a large goat with curved horns, and they curve backwards. All right. So the ibex, the antelope. Everyone knows what an antelope is. And the mountain sheep. So pretty much anything that's like deer or deer adjacent, they can eat. Verse 6 here. Any animal that divides the hoof and has the hoof split in two and chews the cud among the animals that you may eat. Yep, chews the cud like a cow. You guys know what chewing the cud means? Pardon? Chewing in its jaw. Yep. Chewing the cud's when they eat grass or something, they swallow it, they kind of digest it a little bit, kind of spit it back up, continue chewing it, and swallow it again for further digestion. That's just because they want twice the flavor, obviously. The meal is so good, they want twice the flavor. Wondering if there's protein in it. So they can eat animal that divides the hoof and has, a hoof split in two and chews the cud. However, verse 7, nevertheless, you are not to eat of these among which chew the cud, or among those that divide the half in two, the camel and the rabbit and the saffron. Who knows what a saffron is? A coney. That's a good hot dog. It is not a hot dog. It's a world famous coney. No, it is a rock badger. So think more like a badger. So, and it says, and the Saphon, for though they chew the cud, they do not divide the hoof, they are unclean for you. The pig, because it divides the hoof, but does not chew the cud, it is unclean for you. You shall not eat any of their flesh, nor touch any of their carcasses. Yep. Here we go. We're going to the seafood section now. Remember, if it has gills, it grills. All right. So these you may eat of all that are in the water. Anything that has fins and scales you may eat, but anything that does not have fins and scales you shall not eat. It is unclean for you. So, what doesn't have fins and scales? Catfish, shrimp, sharks, lobster, all the tasty foods. Gators. Can't eat gators. Not that I had gators over there, but yep. Well, and like I like how these are very specific, but also like very generic, so a wide populace can just apply these without really having to study. You know. All right, verse 11. You may eat any clean bird, but these are the ones which you shall not eat: the eagle and the vulture and the buzzard and the red kite. So you guys know what a red kite is? It's a smallish bird, kind of like what we have around here, almost like a woodpecker, as far as I understand it. Am I correct? Are you checking me? Medium large bird of prey. See, that still looks small to me. That still looks like a small bird. That's like a discount turkey. A small eagle. So like a hawk. Alright. So. So the red kite, the falcon, and the kite in their kinds. Verse 14 here. Every raven in its kind. 15. And the ostrich, the owl, the seagull, the hawk in their kinds. The little owl, the great owl, the white owl, the pelican, the carrion vulture, the cormorant, which I believe is their word for like vulture. Pardon? Swan, okay. Well, maybe they're beautifully delicious. Let's see here. The stork, the heron and their kinds, the hoopoe, and the bat. Anybody know what a hoopoe is? So, kind of like what I looked up, it said colorful birds that have feathered crowns. So, and from what I was reading, they thought that they were extinct or ancient, but really it was a whole bunch of different species of birds lumped into one species. So, verse 19 here. And all the teeming life with wings are unclean to you, they shall not be eaten. You may eat any clean bird. Alright. So pretty much all the birds that are off limits are pretty much all predators or scavengers. You know, they can only eat certain birds. But the predators, because they ate the flesh and the blood of animals. And scavengers, because they were carriers of disease and contacted dead bodies. So these rules are put in place to you know, really kind of keep the Israelites safe in what they're eating, because like shellfish could be dangerous or poisonous if they're not prepared correctly. And you know, they don't have hand sanitizers, they don't have refrigeration, they don't have soap. Well, I mean, I suppose they would have soap, but not soap like we have nowadays that nukes everything and dries out your hands. So They were here to keep Israel healthy. Now, verse 21 here. You shall not eat anything which dies of itself. All right. Anybody have any idea what that means? Like an insect? Any other? So, insects. Another gold star for Vicky. So yes. So if it just dies of natural causes, if it got hit by a car, well, if it got hit by a car, well, so see, we're already trying, just like the Israelites, trying to find that workaround. So if you see it die, it didn't die of itself. But you didn't see it die, then it died of itself. If a tree falls in the forest and you don't hear it, a hipster bought the album. Only if you're there. Yep. So the question is, why are they not supposed to eat something that dies of itself? Diseased? What else? Well, how about because it hasn't been bled properly? So, spoiled, but if it's not bled properly, it's unclean because the blood is supposed to be poured out on the ground as an offering to God, as it says in Deuteronomy 12. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, and this is it's symbolic in a way too, because the blood is the life force of the animal, and the life force belongs to God. And this is also kind of symbolic because of the sanctity of life. You know, just as it was in Exodus, the blood is very important. Otherwise, God wouldn't have had them put it over their door frames as a sin covering for their household. Blood is very important. All right. Let's see here. All right, the second half of 21 here. You may give it to the alien who is in your town so that he may eat it, or you may sell it to a foreigner, for you are a holy people to the Lord your God. So it's not like it's going to waste. And then the other interesting part of this is you shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Well, so here's the thing is, they're not supposed to boil a goat in its mother's milk because it's a common pagan fertility ritual. So that's part of that. But this also brings up some weird laws. Like, can you have a kosher cheeseburger? What do you guys think? Can you have a kosher cheeseburger? Well, they don't. Well, so here's the thing, though. Beef can be kosher. Yeah, as long as you put mustard on it. So here's how they think of it, and this is held as a belief by some Jewish people. It's because you don't know if the cheese that was made on the cheeseburger was made from the mother of the cow that you're eating. So it could potentially be a sin. So you can't really have a kosher cheeseburger unless you're going to have one of those Impossible burgers, and that's not that. No, just say no. Well, they smell awful. I used to cook Impossible meat patties all the time. They smell awful. Yeah, they smell like a weird version of like burning plastic. Yeah, they're yeah, no. I I couldn't tell you. There's a lot of stinky cheese. Parmesan. I mean Parmesan. So these dietary laws, and especially regarding the boil a goat in its mother's milk, these dietary laws were to help Israel be separate from surrounding nations, set apart. And it also prevented them from just sitting down to a common meal with the surrounding peoples. It's imaginable to think that the Israelites would make friends at least a little bit with the surrounding tribes and peoples and stuff, and they'd sit down to a common meal. But this was to be like, hey, you guys are a set apart people. Don't follow their customs and ways. You have your own customs and ways. So, just kind of interesting there. And now we're going to switch topics completely. We're off of the animals. And this is this is kind of a contentious subject here. Let's see here. I feel like I had one more reference in here. Oh, yes. I wanted to discuss stumbling others with our food choices. So let me turn to 1 Corinthians 8:13. Give me a second here. First Corinthians 8:13. And this is specifically talking about food sacrificed to idols. And it says, "Therefore, if food causes my brother to stumble, I will never eat meat again so that it will not cause my brother to stumble." So while we have the freedom to eat whatever we want nowadays, like say you had a friend with Jewish beliefs and they held very fast to kosher beliefs, you wouldn't like try to sneak in and feed them some bacon. Basically just don't be mean about it. Be like, hey, be respectful. Yeah, exactly. But let's see. In the context of 1 Corinthians 8, it says if your brother is weak, but maybe a better word for that would be sensitive. Some people are more sensitive to some things than others. So we are, as Christians, called to be understanding at the least. Unless they like their steaks medium done, or medium well. If they like their steaks medium well, we politely but firmly ask them to leave. Yeah, if it's well done. Let's see here. I feel like this thing's cutting in and out real bad today. We're gonna have to work on this thing. Yep, if it's well done, politely but firmly ask them to leave. I kid, but still. Alright, to change topics completely, now we're going to talk about tithing. 22. You shall surely tithe all the produce from what you sow, which comes out of the field every year. Let's see, yeah. You shall eat in the presence of the Lord your God at a place where he chooses to establish his name. The tithe of your grain, your new wine, your oil, and the firstborn of your herd and your flock, so that you may learn to fear the Lord your God always. All right. So, truly tithe. Some translations say surely tithe. Don't cheat the Lord. I didn't look up the reference for it, but in the New Testament, there is that couple that sells their land and takes their donation money to the church, but they keep some of it set aside. But they lie about it, and they get struck dead. So, I mean, we could foresee, because they're human like we are, that they try to fudge the numbers a little bit. But my translation says all the produce. Another translation might say the increase. So it's, and this is after they take out the seed grain from their harvest to reseed the next year. They tithe from the increase of what they had from last year. So really, it could be a tax on the income, but not the total assets. I don't want to say tax, a tithe. Sorry. And, eat before the Lord. It's a ceremonial meal with the Lord, plus some left over for the priests and Levites, within their border walls. And, fear the Lord. Because they're tithing, they're putting God first. It's the firstborn, it's their first wine, it's their first grain. Always putting the Lord first. All right. Verse 24. If the distance is so great for you that you are not able to bring the tithe, since the place where the Lord your God chooses to set his name is too far away from you, when the Lord your God blesses you, then you shall exchange it for money, and bind the money in your hand, and go to the place which the Lord your God chooses. You may spend the money for whatever your heart desires, for oxen or sheep or wine or strong drink or whatever your heart desires, and there you shall eat in the presence of the Lord your God and rejoice, you and your household. Also you shall not neglect the Levite who is in your town, for he has no portion or inheritance among you. Like we were just saying, since they don't have their own land, some for the Levites. So, does this mean that they can just sell off the stuff they're going to tithe and keep the money? No, it does not. So since the journey could be longer for some than others, they could exchange their tithe for cash, transport the cash, then tithe that to the temple. And they'll tithe that to the temple by buying livestock or food or wine or drink when they get to the temple. So really they just don't have to carry everything with them. Yeah, or strong drink, like a margarita. So that way they don't have to transport the luggage or seed or everything. I was reading this and I was like, this would be really convenient for the older generation. Maybe Pops doesn't want to bring his first wine, his first grain, his first calf 200 miles on foot or whatever it is. Yeah, but it's still a feast unto the Lord once they get there. But it's also kind of cool for us that God, our God, doesn't place unreasonable demands for us. He provides a convenient way. And, just like Jesus, God doesn't place unreasonable demands on us. He gave us Jesus, which is a more convenient way than having, the head of your household bring a blood sacrifice to cover your sin. So it's pretty awesome. All right. So, the last little bit here, verse 28. At the end of every third year you shall bring out all the tithe of your produce in that year and deposit it in your town. The Levite, because he has no portion or inheritance among you, and the alien, the orphan, the widow who are in your town shall come and eat and be satisfied, in order that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hand which you do. All right. So, does this mean that they have to tithe more every third year? What do you guys think? It sounds like it. So from what I was reading on this is not an additional tithe. It's every three years, the tithe is opened up to the poor, the widows, the Levites, the orphans. It's opened up so that everyone can eat before the Lord and be satisfied. So that's pretty awesome, I think. It also gives designated uses for tithes and kind of sets up that whole construct for a designated use for tithe. And, as we say here at the church, it's your tithing's between you and God. I've read some things that are like, I read one thing that said tithing should be planned, a set percentage and frequent, or like on a set schedule. But it didn't really say, some people, it says there's a lot of legalism that gets into this discussion, but really what I was reading, it said for some people 10% is like nowhere near enough, and some people 5% is already like pushing their faith, because they don't really have much extra. So it's just kind of, it's really between you and the Lord. But the whole thing about tithing is you're supposed to give freely to the Lord, not giving in hopes to be blessed. You're giving because you're already blessed. I think that makes more sense. It's like the Lord has blessed me so abundantly, let me give back to the Lord. So, the amount you give is between you and the Lord, but should be done on faith. Another one of my notes here, it says tithing and giving and financial management is a spiritual issue. So in Luke, 16:11, give me a second here. So Luke 16:11, therefore, if you have not been faithful in the use of unrighteous wealth, who will entrust true riches to you? It's a matter of the heart, really. And in the context of Moses talking about this, tithing was already in place before the Mosaic Law. We turn to Hebrews 7. Come on, fingers. I'm turning into Fred up here. There we go. Hebrews 7. And this will be 5 through 9. I feel like I wrote that down wrong. All right, verse 5. And those indeed, the sons of Levi, who receive the priest's office, have a commandment in the law to collect a tenth from the people, that is, from their brethren, although these are descended from Abraham. But the one whose genealogy is not traced from them collected a tenth from Abraham and blessed the one who had the promises. But without any dispute, the lesser is blessed by the greater. So this was already in place before Moses was even talking about this. So, just kind of, and I have more references here if you guys want to jump around a little bit more, but really at the core of it, your heart has to be in the right place to tithe. And you're not tithing with the expectation of being blessed. You're tithing because you are blessed. Like here, let me turn to Luke again. Luke 11. There we go. Uh, 11:42 of Luke. But woe to you, Pharisees, for you pay a tithe of the mint and rue and every kind of garden herb, yet disregard justice and the love of God. But these things you should have done without neglecting the others. So you can't, really what Jesus is saying is you can't pay your way out of sin. You can't be right with the law in one area and disregard it in the other because you're like, oh, I'll just pay for it. So it's kind of a interesting little tidbit there. All right. Well, that's all I have for you guys. It's a short one. Finally, it's a short one when I said it was going to be a short one. All right. You guys have any questions, comments, concerns? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Mm. Ah. Yep. Well, I mean, if one person in the entire army does it, the whole army's held to account. But yeah, there's always something listening. Oh, we don't have pray and play this Friday, so it's just this Sunday. We have regular church service at 11. And then this coming Wednesday, we have obviously more Deuteronomy. We're going to enter into personal and private prayer request time, and see you guys next time.